And we said, if not now, when? When are you going to do it? I'd already spent 20 years in my career, and we said, let's go for it. Time was right. The truth is, to really make a product work, you can invent the tech, but to really make it sing, to make it fly, you have to know the vertical or know the end customer. When it comes to betting in the moment, and we're talking massive amounts of data coming in, 480 trillion data points come in for 3 sports in 1 year, and then turning around 10,000 microbets for a single game, you cannot do that with human capacity. We're on a trend where all betting is projected to be live. It'll be 75% by 2030. I spend all of my time thinking about what is accuracy, what bets people will want to make. There's a whole slew of data when it comes to how people bet. I am fundamentally changing how people experience sports. That's my mission, and it takes a technologist and somebody with the mind of the fan and the media to do it.
At Softtech, we don't just follow the trends, we set them. As the founder and CEO, I've built a team that excels in delivering cutting-edge solutions in software, hardware, and IoT. From concept to completion, we're the partner that turns your tech dreams into reality. Softtech, where innovation starts. Welcome to Forging the Future, and I'm sitting down today with Kelly Pracht, co-founder and CEO of nVenue. Kelly, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me here. Really, really pleased to sit down and chat.
It's nice to meet you. So what is nVenue?
nVenue. Well, what we do at nVenue is we do real-time sports predictive analytics, where we take live content from the field of play, the court or the racetrack or whatever field of action in live sports. We apply AI and ML to that and deliver odds and probabilities on what's about to happen. And we give that to media and to sports books so that people can interact with the game as it happens.
Okay. And so it's like online betting and things like that? Or
online betting for media. We're on Apple TV. We've been on NBC Sports, but the real application for what we do is for people to be able to interact with the game. And the most relevant and applicable way right now is in sports betting, more particular in microbets, where you can bet on every single pitch, every single free throw, every single down.
Yeah, I think microbetting is an interesting field, and not just betting on the score at the end of the game, but actually what's going to happen on a particular play or on a particular part of the game. So I think that's where things are going. It sounds like you're on a hot topic. But before that, you were in corporate, right? You worked at Compaq and HP. I mean, what really inspired you to take the red pill and go off and start a startup?
The famous red pill. So I was at HP for almost 20 years. Started in R&D, designing things that you could hold in your hand, all the way up to things the size of a football field. And through the course of that, I got onto the intrapreneurship area where I was able to go out and forge new applications and new innovations. We were doing things really differently, and I found myself in leading programs that changed the way we did compute. And I really loved that. I mean, we were changing manufacturing, we were changing the shape of the servers, going to software-defined servers, making the fastest compute on the planet. And I kind of got addicted to innovating. It was just incredible. And I learned how to innovate. I learned how to write the business plans, find the TAMs, figure out how to raise the money sometimes, and the teams. And when I saw the gap in sports tech, which is, kind of my several aha stories, when I found that to be true, and I had a MVP, I had some code written, and there was just this huge hole in my heart for putting this product out into this space. And my husband and I sat down and we said, if not now, when? When are you going to do it? I'd already spent 20 years in my career, and we said, let's go for it. Time was right. It was prior to PASPA, or the repeal of the allowing of legalization in sports betting, and the time was perfect. So we did it.
Well, it's good to have the support of your husband.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I think one of those aha moments was the 2015 AL wildcard game, right? How did that spark nVenue?
So at the time, it was October of 2015, I found myself in New York with HP, or Hewlett Packard Enterprise at the
You were
time.
still with them?
Absolutely. And we were there to talk about media transcoding with the giants in the industry. And we were there for a special session, and it was to take place at Yankee Stadium, which was very cool because I'm a sports nut. And we could not have it at Yankee Stadium. We got redirected to the HBO offices because of the wild card game. And we were there to talk to the CTOs of very major media companies. And we were talking about transcoding. We were talking about IoT. We were talking about what's coming in the future. And we started to talk about sports. And I realized at the time that technology people aren't always on top of sports. They're good at technology, but maybe not always in the vertical to really speak to fans. And I saw that gap.
Geeks aren't good at sports? Wait, this is news
I'm
to
a
me.
geek and I'm good at sports. I absolutely. But, the truth is to really make a product work, I mean, you can invent the tech, but to really make it sing, to make it fly, you have to know the vertical or know the end customer. And when the end customer is a fan, and you don't understand that makes the product, perhaps a little less viable. Well, I had that realization, and it happened to be that night. I had the chance to go to the wild card game, so I hopped on my first subway ride, went to the Bronx. I was a little nervous. I bought a Yankee shirt, even though my Astros were playing. I wanted to feel connected into the crowd. And
You went incognito.
I was incognito, absolutely. And I started watching fans, and I started thinking about why technology was a miss for fans. Everything was starting to be live, where you could interact. Everything in our world was live, but we were watching the game, whether in the stadium or when we were watching broadcast, the same way we were 10, 20, 30 years before. Mm-hmm. And that sparked this idea of, why aren't we doing better? It must be related to a lot of technical innovation is not really built on knowledge of sports. So I spent the next 2 years studying fans, studying the game, studying where the gaps were, and started coding about 2 years after that.
It is interesting because there are some things like F1, right, who has completely embraced technology and the fans, right, and putting the fan in the car. And a lot of the other sports really haven't gone down that path. There's been some things, of course, like under the hood of showing the green lines on the field in the football games and things. But, how come there wasn't more technology to engage the fans before your epiphany?
Several reasons. So the first was the real-time data aspect. Really has only been in the last 5, 6, 7 years where it started to explode and be very, very fast. 5, 6 years ago, we weren't really getting every single pitch reliably. And then there really wasn't a lot of innovation on top of that. Even the other day in the World Series, I think it was Game 3, Fox put up a graphic on the screen that said, hey, there's 15 million data points in this game, and we capture them in 0.3 seconds. And hey, we can give the batting stance percentage to you. And all I could think of was, that's a lot of data, and it's really fast, and that's not interesting. Mm-hmm. And so they're just getting the data out there. And so where we're stuck at right now is making that data interesting for the way we watch sports. And that's my passion, and that's our mission. But we had a technology gap. Now we have a vertical miss, and that's the problem that we're trying to solve.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if I think about it, I remember watching games and they couldn't even show you the score, right? You'd be watching a baseball game and you're watching like for 10, 15 minutes. You're still not even quite sure. Like, please, would the announcer please just kind of comment on what the score of the game is right now? So having that graphic up there, who's on base, the balls, the outs, all that, that's kind of like, so things have come a ways. I mean, but AI mainly is being used as a tool to analyze data from the past. So how do you use AI to drive real-time predictions?
Well, so it starts with, back to the fan. This is where understanding how the sport works is really, really vital. You can take any sport here, but I'll take baseball because that's my home sport. Although we work on NFL, we work on NASCAR, we work on NBA, Major League Soccer. We work on everything, but it's always the same thing. What does a fan need What does a fan think of when they think, will Altuve get this hit? Will Altuve hit a home run? Will Bregman strike out? What are we thinking of? Well, you think of, what's the count? How have they been doing so far? What's the year like? What's the situation? What inning is it? Is the pitcher tired? And you could quickly add up, a dozen, 50, 60 things that go through your mind. Is it important what field they're at, or what the venue is, the distance to left field? And that quickly becomes a machine learning problem to start with. So clearly you need to run some type of fast algorithm to say what happens. So we have to use historical data to build models for Altuve. And Altuve, for example, he's different week over week, month over month, year over year. So we build these layered models, and we create this thing called a data vault or a model vault with millions of models of all baseball players, football players, NBA players, and teams. So that just sits there in this big model lake, if you will. But now that data comes in real time from the game, and it's past data. It's nice, it's fast, it's great, but it's past. We have to use AI to advance it several plays ahead to be able to say, hey, what's that next play? So that we can ask those models what's about to happen, and then in milliseconds turn around those probabilities. So it's kind of like an AI, ML, AI sandwich, if you will.
So how is machine learning and AI changing sports betting?
So today, and you may be surprised to hear this, but a lot of sports betting is very manual and very human operated. I went to one of the major sports books when I was in Vegas a few weeks ago and sat down in their trading room with their traders, and they're setting the lines automatically. They're watching the game. They have a lot of great information on the software, but they are setting a lot of lines manually, rejecting bets, closing bets. It's surprisingly more manual than you'd think. When it comes to betting in the moment, and we're talking massive amounts of data coming in. 480 trillion data points come in for 3 sports in 1 year. And it's growing. It's exponentially growing. And then turning around 10,000 microbets for a single game. You cannot do that with human capacity. So we're at a world where betting is being defined largely by ML and AI and automating the entire process. And what I didn't mention is we're on a trend where all betting is projected to be live it'll be 75% by 2030. So,
what does that mean, that it's all live?
Well, so by 2030, so it's about $150 billion market, and it's going up. It's at a pretty healthy CAGR across international and U.S. But the trend that's happening underneath that is betting is switching from pre-game or pre-match, which is anything you make before the game starts, to this category called live betting. And we're expecting to see that take up 75% of that $150 billion. And microbets, or any fast bet that lives inside live betting, is a big piece of that. So the industry is demanding more and more live betting. It's impossible to do by humans. We absolutely must have ML, AI, and automation. And that's what we do.
So it's, instead of saying, I think the Astros are going to win next week, that's not a live bet. What a live bet is, Altuve's at bat, and I'm going to bet on what happens in that moment. With so many data points, I mean, who's generating those data points? Is that all AI and machine learning? They're watching the game and generating the data? Because who's keying all that data in?
It's absolutely a marvel to get to know and get to work in that world. The leagues themselves typically harness their own data, and they outsource and hire a lot of people, a lot of automation. That is also moving more from manual to automated. We love working with NASCAR because one of the things they do is they have telemetry. So they have telemetry on the cars. So at any moment we know where the cars are at, how fast they're moving, what XYZ position they are, and everything about them. And that's wonderful because it's very clean. But when you talk about like NBA, there are a lot of people still keying things in addition to that move to more automated video-based. But that's also happening right now. And as we get to that automated and video-based, that's when the data just keeps exploding. And some things are, like the pitch speed and pitch type, are automated already.
So is microbetting allowed at everywhere in the U.S. now, or it's just state by state?
State by state, Texas and California are the bigger holdouts right now, but
Which is interesting.
It is interesting, but it'll get there. It'll get there. You only have to look at like New York and the taxes that it brings in to see that there are some benefits, but certainly we're expecting and desire the industry to be regulated and honest and have integrity as well. So
why do you think Texas doesn't allow it yet?
Well, that's a loaded question. And, the last time somebody asked me that was for, they were writing a big piece on Texas betting, and they wanted us to come in and say that. And it's like, I really don't want signs in my yard, but why do I think that? I think for a few reasons. I think one, we want to make sure that it's integrous and reliable and not going to cause a problem. That's, and certainly there are many that have moral challenges when it comes to betting, and those are fair things. And I think that's been largely the driver for our state. However, there's, Texas loves sports, and it's what we do, and that interaction is also a piece of watching sports. Now, for my company, we can have interactions be free to play or sports betting. It's more profitable on the sport betting side, but we'll wait and see when Texas is. I don't think 25 is the year, from what I understand.
Yeah. Yeah, I can understand the holdback and the concern, and there's always things you have to worry about when it comes to betting. We've done applications for, I think we actually created the first mobile device for betting in Vegas with Venetian.
Awesome.
But, of course, they were worried about keeping the devices within a certain area. And so there was technology built in that the devices couldn't leave the lounge because, of course, they don't want them back in someone's hotel room and then having people force them to bed and things like that. So that's, things you don't normally think about. What are all the bad ways that people can exploit this?
I spend all of my time thinking about what is accuracy, what bets people will want to make, how to put out odds. There's a whole slew of data when it comes to how people bet, and using that data to apply the right price to the bets, which is also called VIG or juice. Those are very, very important. It defines our profitability, and that also is a huge data problem that's really, really exciting, and we're solving right now.
What was one of the bigger challenges for you moving from corporate to a startup that you didn't realize?
Well, so at HP, I had the privilege of driving a lot of programs and building them from scratch and changing the world, and that was great. And I was ready for that. I also had a lot of unseen services living behind the scenes that you just kind of take for granted when you're in corporate world. One of those is legal. We had a slew of lawyers. Like things like NDAs were pre-done for you, and you could, hey, run this contract. And sometimes maybe we were a little annoyed because they took too long, but we still had legals behind us. We had finance teams, accounting teams, and so those resources were just right there. I also learned that holidays and vacations and weekends are a gift, not a requirement when you move to startup life. But, when it comes to hard work and innovation and building a business, very much the same. But when you're on your own, entrepreneurship, you're on your own, and you've got to go make those things happen, and you can't take for granted that you just have a BIOS team that's there for you anytime.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you have to do a lot more on your own, especially in the beginning. And you're the only one that's going to empty the trash can.
Yep.
Or do any number of things. Did you find that you liked having different hats in the different parts of a startup that you had to handle? Because you have to go from being a technology innovator to being marketing, payroll, finance, legal, right?
I love wearing a lot of hats. I love solving a lot of problems. So that's fun for a while. We're several years in. So at this moment, I'm super grateful for the, one of my folks who came with me from HP, who manages all of the money and the expenses and the HR. And that's a blessing for sure. But no, I love it because you get a chance to be, to make those decisions. And And it's fun. All of it's fun.
Any advice for someone that's making that same transition from corporate to startup life?
Yes, lots of advice. And my mind is rolling through about 50, 60 things. Some of the advice I would say is use your money wisely. It goes faster and you'll always need more. So when you're looking at, do you need to spend that money on this tool and this expense? Think carefully. If it's not going to get you to revenue or not going to make a difference, then don't do it. Don't do it. I would also say, keep mindful of what's actually important.
What?
You only have so many hours in a day.
And what's important?
Well, it kind of changes throughout the course. Like right now, we're going from pre-revenue to post-revenue. So everything on my mind right now is what will get us into that. What do we have to do to get ready? What's the reporting that we have to do, and making sure the contracts are in order. So some of the things that we might do, like, does the all hands meeting need to be at 2 p.m. on Thursday, or can we make it next week? Like those kind of things can probably be a little bit smished around, but it's different every season of the company.
Sure. Did you take financing or did you bootstrap?
Bootstrapped. Mm-hmm. So when we made that decision, I was also co-founding this with my brother, and we said, let's bootstrap it. So, I recognize it's not the best advice. We emptied a 401k and spent a year to do it on our own before we started bringing in some money.
You're not the only one in startup life, I think, that probably emptied their 401k. Why would you say it wasn't the best advice to bootstrap?
I love bootstrapping. I think maybe the 401k might not have been the right decision, just because you lose some value to that. So I think bootstrapping is fantastic. As long as you can possibly bootstrap, do it, because then you have less people, less oversight. Once you start taking the venture capital money, then you're on a clock, and you're on a clock to getting to a certain place. So bootstrapping was great, and I had the best time that year. We holed up I would go to Dallas 5 days out of the week. That's where my brother was. We brought on another co-founder. We holed up into a WeWork on Thanksgiving Square, and just worked and just got stuff done. It was the best year of my life.
Well, I mean, it's like you with the 401k, you burned the ship, right? This is it. But
little did we know that at the time we were thinking B2C was the right way to go, because we weren't seeing a lot of uptick on a B2B business. We didn't have those connections, and it's like B2C. One of my founders, was one of the early employees at Tender, and we're like, this is going to work, and we built an app, and we were ready to launch on April 2020.
Oh.
Yeah. So that was...
What happened then?
Yeah. And so no sports happened. And that's when, that was also, while COVID was devastating, it also made us recognize that what we had, the technology we had, was really something special. And we, from that point, we pivoted. So don't be afraid of the pivot would be the second one. It's like, if you have to do it, you need to do it. In this case, it was spot on the right call for us.
So, Kelly, how are you forging the future in sports tech?
I knew to expect this question, and still, I've thought about this for several days now. How am I forging the future? I am fundamentally changing how people experience sports. That's my mission, because we can do so much better, and it takes a technologist and somebody with the mind of the fan and the media to do it.
Well, I like that, and I like your mission of making it more engaging and not just a passive sit on the couch and watch the game, right? And being able to actually interact. I think that's a great application. I think that probably could also be applied to other things outside of sports. So I would put a little plant a little seed there. There might be other areas similarly, right, where we're not just passively watching the boob tube, as they used to call it, right? So
exactly right. It's all of life. Just yesterday was Halloween, And we track the costumes of what comes in. We want to make it more engaging for all of us to get up and give these little youngsters candy. And we put, like a technologist would or a geek would, we had a whiteboard with our votes, and we would track all of the costumes that came in, and we kept it behind the door. And these kids, as they came up, started to pay attention, and they wanted to interact. What is that? Oh, I know that guy. Oh, where am I unique? And even these little 8-year-olds are, if you give them data that's relevant to their life and has something where they can interact, you can make a connection. So I believe that to be true, to answer your question. I think that we can engage people in real time and use data in our world far more interestingly than what we have done today. And, once you learn the secrets of how to do machine learning and AI and solve these challenges, they're all just the next challenge. So when we crack this one, maybe I'll take a bite at something else, but...
Okay, but you're leaving me in suspense. I mean, what was the number one costume?
Oh, my goodness. The number one costume was by far Japanese anime. Yeah, and nobody expected that, but...
Interesting.
We got it wrong. Next year, we'll see. 77 trick-or-treaters.
Wow.
But.
Well, thank you for coming on and telling me a little bit more about sports. That's what about my level of sports interaction is the geek part of it. But I have some socks here for you. I've got my money socks on for startups, but here.
Oh my goodness!
There you go. I don't know if you wear socks or not, but yeah,
that's fantastic. Well, thank you so much.
Thanks for coming on the show.
All right.
I know how important staying informed is for innovation and growth. The Forging the Future newsletter brings you the best in tech trends, startup advice, and industry insights. Join our community and forge your future with us. Subscribe now.